Is AI making it harder for you to find a job? I hear from a ton of people about how hard it is to find a job. It feels impossible right now, and the job market really is a mess. And to top it all off, you've got these fears about AI and how AI is going to take my job, and maybe they won't fill as many jobs because AI is going to do some stuff. Well, my name is Jason Roberts. I'm a recruiter. I've been a recruiter for 25 years. I just got back from the USA Today Top Workplaces Summit. And at that summit, I talked about this very topic, preparing your work for AI. Stick with me. You can watch that part of the presentation right after this. Before we get started on this piece where I talk about how AI impacts your job and the job market as a whole, I want to offer you one thing. I want you to be able to take charge of AI for your own job search. And we're going to link to a thing that's going to be right here. This is my guide on how to use AI to help you in your job search. I've written some pre-built prompts for you and given you some hints and some tricks. It's my most watched video, how to use ChatGPT to help in your job search. This is a link to the free guide that I give out with that. And here we go. I'm going to jump right into the presentation from the USA Today Top Workplaces Summit. This AI thing is Industry 5. It's the fifth industrial revolution. And let's talk about what's happened with each one of these things. And we just covered the first one, which is the mechanization with steam power replacing human muscle. That was the first one. The second one is mass production, right? So mass production, this is when Henry Ford showed up and he brought along the assembly line, and we had electric energy. And everything changed with electric energy because you weren't building things on steam or based on where a river was to turn your mills or something. The electric energy and the assembly line changed everything. So this is where we started seeing new things happen in society as a whole. So society as a whole had never had the concept of a 40-hour work week. Henry Ford made that up. Did you know this? Henry Ford made up the 40-hour work week. And weekends in an agrarian society, you don't get the weekend off. You definitely don't get Saturday off. You go to church on Sunday. That's what an agrarian society was. But Henry Ford said, well, we've got to figure out the amount of time that's normal, that's okay for a person to work. And he made up 40 hours, right? He said 40 hours is the way to go. Now, we're all locked in. We think this is the right thing now. But when people start pushing back, they're like, no, we should only work 30 hours or 32 hours or something like that. And then you get lots of noise in the system. Oh, well, that's just lazy. Well, no, this dude made it up. He totally made it up. And he made it up for us. Now, here's what we got out of that. We got free time for the first time. So as a society, we got free time. We'd never had free time before. I'm watching this show right now. How many of you watched 1923? Yeah, it's incredible. It is brutal. It is absolutely real. It's a prequel to Yellowstone. I wish they would the dude would just get to the place finally. Anyway, if you're watching it, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's so frustrating. But there was something just this past episode, the most recent episode, the antagonist, the bad guy, who's played by a former James Bond, I think, isn't it? Timothy Dalton? Yeah. So evil James Bond in America in the 20s is what we had there. But he's trying to convince a bunch of rich people to invest in a ski resort because, as he says it, people have time now. They have time to do something. What are they going to do with that time? They're going to travel for leisure. And these people they were like, travel for leisure? Who would do such a thing? You mean you would brave the winter if you don't have to? And he was like, well, you ever been to a beach? Well, yeah, well, we've got lakes, we've got sand, we've got shores. Why would you go to a beach? Well, it's just different. It's better. Well, how? Well, you just have to go there. And he said, exactly. But these people could not conceive of this new thing, which was leisure travel, this new thing that they would get to experience. They had no idea what that would be like. And this guy had a vision for it and was casting that vision for them to get them to buy in and be a part of this thing that he's trying to build, right? I say that to say We have no idea what's coming at the end of this AI revolution. Yeah, he's got to steal the Dutton's lane. It's a different part. This is a different part. Yeah, yeah, that's a different part. Well, he wants to. He hasn't done it yet. Apparently, he doesn't succeed because this is a prequel. We know what happens later. So yeah. So anyway, that was the second industrial revolution. But we got some really cool things like societally. We got new things. We got free time. We got leisure, which we had not had before because we had always been agrarian. So lives got better at the end of this thing. It was pretty cool, right? Okay. Next, we have automation with computers and electronics. They say 1969. In real life, I didn't get a personal computer until, I don't know, 89, 90, something like that. I had an IBM PC Junior. It was a 186. You can get an extra thing you slapped on there and make it a 286. And yeah, it didn't have any onboard storage to speak of. You had to load everything with these disks. Yeah, but not the hard floppies, like the floppity floppities, and you put those in. So that was late 80s. So what happened before this, though, is we had these massive groups of people. I've seen a picture. I used to work at JP Morgan a couple of years ago, and on the wall, actually, it shows these pictures of progress. I've seen this picture of the secretarial pool, and there were all of these women that were typing things away. And what would happen is you would have your secretary who would sit there and take shorthand of your meetings and take shorthands of notes or memos you would want to send out. They would write this stuff down. Then they would hand it down to a person in the secretarial pool who would type it all up for you, right? And the secretarial pool would do that. And then you would get your paper memo that you would then hand out to people. And so then they would make copies. The way they made copies was they made copies, or eventually they had the carbon paper where they could do a few different ones that way. So this was, the computers ultimately replaced things like that. Now, people didn't freak out as much during that industrial revolution. They weren't like, oh no, our jobs are going to go away. But you don't see a whole lot of secretarial pools anymore. And you don't see a lot of people with even administrative assistants. That's pretty rare. I've had one a couple of times and I love that, but I didn't know exactly what to do with them because I had all this stuff that would do it for me. So it was a very uncomfortable thing. So anyway, I didn't know what I was doing. So the computers changed everything. That was the first time that we had that. And then we get to the fourth one. Now, the first time I started speaking about this was during the fourth industrial revolution. And the fourth industrial revolution, we've all experienced here. I bet there's a bunch that didn't get to the third in this room. There's at least a handful that wasn't at the third. None of us were at the second. The fourth one, we've all been there for. The fourth one is cyber physical systems, the Internet of Things, networks. So when we say cyber physical systems, what really changed is that you have this thing in your hand. You have things that are attached to your body. You're gathering data in different ways. You're interacting with information in completely different ways than you ever did before, right? So with this came something really interesting. We finally reached a point in Moore's Law. Who's familiar with Moore's Law? Okay. Moore's Law basically says the computing power doubles every 18 months. Yeah. It gets half the size, right? So computing power gets stronger and stronger and stronger. That's why we have in our little hands what amounted to supercomputers in the 60s. It would take up a room in the 60s. And we're more powerful with our hands. A pocket calculator from the 80s is basically what they had on the Apollo missions. Yeah, for real. It's what they had on the Apollo missions. So these things have completely changed our world. We finally reached a place with Moore's Law where the computing power is starting to outpace human adaptability. So human systems can't adapt quickly enough to keep up with the technology. And there are some examples of that I'll give you. So the biggest one in my mind is Uber. Uber is just a godsend. It's my favorite thing. I think it's a brilliant evolution. It freaked everybody out. The cabbies in New York and the cities didn't know what to do. The concept of gig work, people don't know how to regulate it or what to do with it. Just nobody knew what to do in that space, right? That was Uber. And So we started getting these regulations in, and we're just now locking in regulations for gig work. And we're just now locking in regulations for what taxis have to do and how taxis have to be approved, right? Well, guess what? Now we've got the next thing. We're already at self-driving cars. So you can take your Tesla in some places where they're testing it out, and you can say, go make money, and your Tesla will leave your place of work and go pick up passengers and drive them around. That's a thing that's available in every single Tesla off the lot, and you can make money back on this thing. It's wild, absolutely wild. What are the rules about self-driving cars? I have no idea. It's outpaced our ability to adapt to it. And this has happened to a lesser extent in lots of other things, right? So there's tons of applications that it takes a lot to learn how to catch up to. Well, look how fast we're accelerating. We're already at the next one. We're at Industry 5, the fifth industrial revolution. This is a big one. This is as big as 1. 2, 3, and 4 were, I feel like, iterations upon themes. But 5 is massive. And here's why. Just like the first one replaced human muscles with steam power to do work, Industry 5 is replacing human brain power with digital work. So we have a new part of our workforce. That's why the workforce is a little bit challenged right now. You'll notice that even though we have relatively low unemployment, it's a really tough job market. It's a very difficult job market. And there are a good number of reasons, but one of the reasons for that is people are not replacing people when they leave. They're not opening jobs when someone exits because they think, oh, I can probably consolidate and do more. And people actually have said that it's a white collar recession. So people who had knowledge worker jobs that were safer in the past, they're not safer right now. So it's a completely different thing. And it's not a terrible thing necessarily. I think we just have to be ready for it. Like the workforce has to adapt to it. And in the end, we're going to get some really great stuff, is my guess. That's my guess based on each time this has happened, we've gotten better things. I wouldn't want to go back and live in the 80s because I think life is better now than it was in the 80s. 80s is pretty fun, but I still think life is better now than it was in the 80s. So things have gotten better every single time. And we have relatively low unemployment. If you think about the 70s, way higher unemployment than we have right now. So we're in a pretty decent position at the moment when it comes to all of these things. I think that Industry 5 is we're right on the very edge. And we're even more behind in how we adapt to it. Humans are even more behind in how we can adapt to technology.